So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And the basic idea of this is that we want to separate the content of a website or web page, let's say web page. So we want to separate the content of a web page from how it actually is presented. So separate the content from the presentation. Let's look at an example. So what we're looking at here is csszengarden.com. And you can see a page here that looks pretty nice, and it's got some text. It's talking about why CSS is nice and how you can go ahead and provide your own CSS for this HTML page. So let me go ahead and bring up the source for this page. And what we can see is we have got HTML. So we've got some divs, which are basically blocks or elements, which are just containers. Okay. And we can see things are broken up into, for instance, there's a summary of stuff, there's a preamble, it talks about some explanation and some participation. And so it's actually putting these into separate areas that can then be styled separately. So we see all this stuff. And then if we come back, the interesting part is if we go, well, actually, let's look at the CSS for this. So if we go back to the source, and we can see it's actually referring to this style. And what we see is this is the style. So it's separated in a separate file even from the content. And we can see things like the body has a particular color. So that's going to provide a color for the items in the page, or there's going to be a particular background, a particular default font that's used, and it controls the sizing of the font. We can see here, this controls the A, that is the link, the anchor tag. And we can see it has a particular color, and it has a different color when it's been visited, and when you hover over it, it has a separate color. So let's just kind of look at that. We can see this is a link, and it's got this behavior that when we click on it, we get a different color. And if we actually follow the link, then we should get a different color too. The really important part is what happens when we look at a different CSS. So let's look, for instance, at this one. So what we've got here is exactly the same HTML page, just with a different style sheet applied to it. And you can see then you can get much different look to the page. So the locations of things is different, the colors are different, the fonts are different. We can see here what happens when you hover over it, looks different. Let's look at some others, because you can have really, well, so here again, quite different. So steel, what we've got is different. Most of them put the other samples at the bottom. We'll see there's some other ideas. Let's look at, so notice Apothecary here has all these designs more towards the top. Again, amazing what we can do just with a style sheet. So the idea is we can separate the concerns of creating the HTML from actually styling. We have to still provide enough information in the HTML to be able to do this. So we will talk about how to do that. That is how we can, when we're applying styles, apply to particular elements. And there's some crafting that has to be done for the HTML in order to be able to do that, some sort of an organization.